welcome to Leather Mosaic. I am so excited to have Amelia with us today. We are here in Baltimore on this beautiful sunny day. So Amelia, could you tell me a little bit about yourself or how you're active in our community?
I am known for two things, for being a bootblack as well as legal counsel to various organizations and to people who need.
We were talking before, and you were talking about really helping and counseling with the LGBT community.
Yes.
Could you tell us what their needs are specifically?
Well, a lot of them need actually access to attorneys, because most of the attorneys are very, very conservative, and they just don't want to deal with anything that's not straight hetero stuff. I deal with wills, making wills, advanced medical directives. I also deal with domestic violence cases and marriages and divorce, and also the immigration aspect of what happens with an LGBT couple.
Oh, wow. You never really think about those things, though. There's so many more things that as people that are in the LGBT community, that some of us sit back and we take for granted, that you can just go out and get an attorney, you can go out and get this. Sometimes you forget that even those little things, those basic things that people have rights to, that they even have to fight for that.
Yeah, it becomes really difficult. They'll either charge, the attorney will either charge an exorbitant amount of money, or they'll just say, nope, I'm not dealing with you.
Wow. So how did you get started in the community, and where?
It was here in Baltimore that, well, it kind of depends on how you look at things. As far as being in the actual community, I would say it's here in Baltimore, except that we also started with what we call the freak goth community after I met Sir, which was 26 years ago. But there we were mostly on the fringes. We didn't get into the leather part of the community until we got here to Baltimore.
Okay.
You know, so.
How did you do it? How did you integrate into that?
Well, we'd always been part of the LGBT community as a whole since we met, and we raised our son to be, he was one of the kids that was there at Beltane campouts and Salwin campouts with the freak/goth community. And it became interesting whenever he got old enough to want to go into somebody else's tent while they're camping. We had to do a special thing, tell them, look, when the sock's out, you're not supposed to go in.
Yeah, right.
Because otherwise, you know, we had couples that were female-female, male-male, and then triads and quads. And so we had to explain to him, look, you know, you can't go in there because they're doing private things. You know, and so we at least raised him to be fairly accepting of everything.
Right.
You know, and as far as getting into the leather community, that happened after Sir decided that I needed to know how to take care of leather. And so there was a class on leather through the submissive interest group that I went to, and I remembered from back when my father taught me how to do his boots when I was 4, and that sort of brought back a whole flood of memories for me. And after learning how to work on Sir's leather, I started looking through the internet to see what else there was besides just this one little class. Found out there wasn't a whole lot, you know, and there still isn't a whole lot outside of bootblack groups, interest groups on like Facebook and FetLife. There really isn't a whole lot out there for learning for yourself. And bootblacking is actually a type of craft that it's best to be an apprentice. and learn hands-on, because so much of it is, well, when it feels like this, it's a high shine. When it feels like this, it's an oil tan, and that's not something you can convey through video, much less written word.
So, but the leather, you said your sir wanted you to take care of his leather.
Right.
Were you already in a leather kink relationship, or?
We were always in a dominant submissive relationship, pretty much from the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Even though we didn't officially make it that I was collared until December 31st of 2008. There was always the idea that we would talk about things together. He would make the final decision. And it didn't matter which aspect of our life it was about. He was the one that always made the final decision about things. And so we just basically formalized it then.
So a lot of couples, when they make that decision, a lot of them have been together for quite a long time, just like with y'all. Did y'all go the route of making a contract, or did you, just because you had been together for so long, did you just know what the expectations were already?
I think we pretty much had worked it out, so we didn't need anything in writing. We did do a 3-year intensive search in the internet, as well as in local community classes, about what were the parameters of our relationship. We actually started off as an MS couple, but he did not like the idea of me calling him master, and I found it kind of bizarre as well, and I just kept calling him sir. And so whenever we got into the leather community, it was the gay leather community, and there was the sir boy, so he was like, okay, you're a girl, you can't be a boy, so we'll do sir girl. Yeah, and it worked really well, because if I was more of a butch, then it could be sir boy, but since I am femme, it's sir girl.
I think it's interesting. Well, I think it's wonderful, actually, how there was a time way back when there was a certain way you had to do leather, and I really like seeing the progression of where people are getting so much more comfortable with making their relationship what it needs to be for them. I really like that. So what is it about your relationship that might be different from what other people, other than that? I mean, everybody calls their master or what have you different names, but your relationship as a whole, what might be different about your relationship based on other people's?
Well, I'm visually impaired, so that makes a big difference, because and that's where we caught a lot of criticism when we were trying the MS version of things, because I cannot do things at events such as going to get his plate and bringing it to the table, because usually the venue is so crowded that they really aren't avenues where I can get through with my cane and then carrying a plate. Sir basically said, look, you sit down, I'll bring the plate to you, because otherwise you're liable to give the plate in somebody's lap. And that would cause some animosity that didn't need to happen.
So well, that's, when it comes to things like that, you expect that just as a couple that you're going to come together and work together and make that right with whatever that situation might be. So how long have you been visually impaired?
Since 1985. So that's what?
A long time.
Long time.
You would know. I think Slev was actually born in 83, so that's, yeah.
That's
Sorry,
a long
just
time.
thinking about that. Just thinking about those ages. So has it ever made it difficult for you to participate in the leather world?
Actually, not really. The only time it's made it interesting, not difficult, but interesting, is whenever I've been on the bootblack stand for like 3 hours, and then I grab my cane and go off with my kit, and the person who was my last client will sit there and go, wait a minute, you just did my boots.
How do you do that?
By feel. Really? Mostly by feel. In fact, it got to be a joke in a way that I think it was in Augusta, Georgia. They decided to have something called Southern Soul, which was a day-long bootblack intensive. And one of the people that was there said, look, okay, we're going to do something different. So everybody that was participating in the class were blindfolded and then told, okay, now bring up a high shine, the Amelia way. And I was like, really? Seriously?
But that's kind of cool, though, you know?
Yeah.
That's definitely, it says a lot about you. And for me, I kind of get that. I kind of get, not that I know anything about bootblacking, you know, but it seems like you would almost have an advantage, you know, to a certain extent.
Well, Sir has told me that I basically bootblack with my eyes closed. So what little bit of sight I have, I don't even use.
Wow. And how long have you been bootblacking?
10 years. Wow. Almost 11, yeah.
So how do you participate right now in the community?
Well, like yesterday, I was at the Northeast Leather Person of Color contest, and I was there as a bootblack. I also teach people that when they ask. I have them either come over to my house or I'll go to their house and do bootblacking with them, show them how to do it. I've taught four of the people that I've taught became title holders.
Oh, wow.
So
that's interesting.
You know, I myself became a title holder in 2013 only because they kept pushing me. The producer of the thing said, look, you know, you've already produced 2 title holders. You need to go out there and get your own title. And I was like, I don't really care.
What title is that you held?
I'm Mid-Atlantic Community Bootblack 2013.
That's wonderful. So are you still passionate about it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I love it.
What does it give you?
It centers me. If I'm too grouchy or just, you know, all out there because of my vanilla work, because in my vanilla life I'm an immigration attorney, which these days is a real pill. But if I'm bootblacking, especially when I'm working on Sir's boots while he's wearing them, that centers me, calms me down. There's been times where I've been all stressed out before I go and do a shift on a stand, and by the second person that sits in my chair, I'm present right here and everything's fine in my world.
That's great. Your Sir, does he participate with you in the community?
He doesn't like to be in the forefront. He's known as the Mid-Atlantic Bootblack Daddy because he tends to make sure that the bootblacks are fed, are hydrated, and that we've gotten enough rest.
You know, that's pretty cool though if you think about it. I mean, him being your Sir, and he's there still to support and to help those other people. Do y'all get out much into the community?
In the last year or so, no, because he's had some surgeries and I have too. But otherwise, yeah, my title year, he drove me 25,000 miles to get to various events to bootblack.
Did you enjoy that year?
It was mixed. I enjoyed some of it, but it was hard to balance between the title holder responsibilities and then the responsibilities in the house as far as, because I own my own law firm. So if I'm not there, there's no work being done, which means no income.
Right. Do you think that title holders, that people expect too much of them?
Well, sometimes, yeah, because they want the pretty, you know, the person who's the pretty person for the year, you know, to be everywhere. You know, even though the contracts usually say you need to have one fundraiser and then appear at the next year's contest and maybe one or two other things, it's like everybody in the world wants you to be there at their event,
right?
You know, and there's more and more events all the time.
One of the things when we ran for our title, we literally had no idea financially how impactful it is on your life. And we're finding, I think that most of the producers now are looking at that. And so, you know, for a couple of years, it was a hard time getting anybody to run. And I think it had a lot to do with that. But I think the producers now are working a little bit harder on helping people financially. Because I know for us, like I said, that was very impactful. And it would, when people ask, are you happy you won the title? Did you have a good time? Same reaction you just had. It's kind of like, oh, well, yeah, and no. And so, what do you enjoy the most in life in general?
Helping people. Whether it's through my boot blacking, making their boots and their leather gear shiny. You know, I especially like doing leather garments while they're on them.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's just awesome. So much fun.
Even watching, that's very intimate to watch. It's beautiful when you watch that. And the smells. You know, the whole thing about it. I literally love leather. And although I am not a boot black, for me, watching, to me that's a scene almost. Just sitting back and watching it. And it can be just one of the most beautiful experiences, I think, that you get to see sometimes. So where are you now? Now, let's go back a little bit. Since you've been in leather for a while and you've been out in the community, what things have you seen change from when you first started?
There's a lot more contests now. So there are a lot more titles. I would say for a while there we were changing to the point that there was more acceptance by the Muggle community. But in the last 2 years that's been stripped away. You know, so now we're not quite back to the 60s before the Stonewall riots, but it's coming awful close.
That's scary, isn't it?
It's very scary.
And which was going to be my next question, you know, with politics as they are now and with the scumbag that's in office. To say it nicely. Do you think him being in office, what do you think has been the impact on our community?
It's been very difficult, especially for the kids, you know, because they're looking at the person who's supposed to be the ideal of what is the United States of America is, you know, an unmentionable individual. You know, he's just horrendous. He can't even tell the truth.
Right.
You know, and so how do you teach the younger kids to expect integrity, to expect honesty when the person in the White House doesn't have a clue?
What have you seen so far since he's been in office? Have you personally seen in the LGBT community, LGBTQ plus now I think it is?
Yes.
I think that's what it is. What have you seen as far as, like you said, going back? We're going backwards instead of forwards. What are those things that you've seen?
Well, like, it used to be that the State Department, people probably didn't know this, but the State Department was actually one of the more progressive agencies in the United States, because from about 1970 on, they had a provision that if you had a same-sex partner, that the partner could go with you to an overseas location, because you're stationed there usually for like 3 to 5 years, and your partner would get a visa to go there. And there was no issue about, well, you know, male, female, het, or whatever. They were like, as long as you were in a stable relationship, they were good with that. You know, and now in the last 2 years, that's been stripped away. It's no longer on the State Department website.
That is so scary.
You know, and that's just the least of it. You know, the whole issue of protection of especially the trans children in schools has been ripped away. You know, luckily the court system is fighting back, you know, very, very hard. And that's about the best thing, is that the judges are actually coming out and saying, oh no, you are not allowed to do that. That is against the law. You cannot do that, or that's against the Constitution.
I love it that they're doing that. And they're doing it constantly too. They're not backing off. Now, one of the concerns that I have, and I don't know if you've seen this or not, you know, when he first came in office, our community, our leather community all over, kind of stood up, and so many of us started going out and protesting, or just really keeping up with what was going on and seeing how we could do to help. Recently, I don't know if people are getting complacent or feel like it's not working, but I've noticed our community is starting to back off on some of that. Have you seen that as well?
Not quite so much. I think a lot of people are just tired. I mean, it's 2+ years going on, and you've only got so much energy to try to do something for the community as a whole versus your own personal stuff.
Right.
You know, and I guess people just figure, I've done what I can publicly, and I think a lot of people are also waiting for 2020 to come up.
Oh, it's going to get big then.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, even among the immigrant community for immigration purposes, I've had so many people since 2015 say, I want to do my citizenship. You know, when can I do it? Let me know.
That's really cool.
You know, and because they want to vote against him.
Has it gotten harder for them?
Yes.
The immigration process in itself, has it gotten harder?
Very much so.
Wow.
Where before, if, say, you were the U.S. citizen daughter of 2 people who did not have their green cards, you could file a petition for them, and they would file an application to get the green card as a joint package. And unless there was an issue of the father maybe not being the father, it was pretty much, okay, we've got the paperwork, we've got the birth certificate, life is good, here's your green card. Now, they're interviewing everybody. And I've gone to one interview where the 2 people, the parents had TPS, temporary protected status, because they were from El Salvador, had the child born in the United States who was now 21, and she filed for them. We had the interview, and at the interview, all they did was go over the facts that were in the forms. And I'm like, okay, do you have any questions about their relationship? No, we're just good. And I'm like, this is a waste. This is a waste of time and money.
Exactly. It doesn't make any sense, does it?
And they're doing this, and it's like, are you insane?
Do they think it's going to slow people down? Do you think if that's what it is?
No, what it is that Stephen Miller, who is Trump's biggest advisor, who interestingly enough is only 1 generation away from being an immigrant himself, Jewish immigrant, is very anti-immigration. And basically, he has a pipeline straight to Department of Homeland Security, and he formulates the policies. And it's extremely anti-immigrant. It's why there was the separation of the children from the parents last summer.
Yeah.
Was because of him directly. There's going to be a special place in hell for him.
Oh, thank goodness. I believe that. What do you see in our leather community that's problematic? Do you see anything? And let me take it to another level. So I've talked with a lot of people that are our age, and a lot of times it comes up about the younger people that are coming up in our leather community. Do you see a huge separation between the ages, or do you see a lot of people feel like there's a lot of disrespect from our younger generation? Is that something that you see at all?
I don't.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe it's because I'm seen as boot black mama, you know, and the kids see me as a resource more than anything else. I have a lot of friends in the leather community that are the under 35 crowd, and the joke is that I birth children that are bigger than me.
I love that.
But yeah, and a lot of them are basically nationwide. You know, that I deal with both through Facebook and just you know, emailing back and forth and getting together when we can. But no, I think the kids are all right. You know, they're learning. They're hungry to learn. They're very hungry for the knowledge. It's a matter for them finding the right people to teach them, and not to take everything on face value.
Right. Well, and that kind of scares me when you think about a lot of people. They've been doing this for so long. I think sometimes they forget that they were in that beginning, and they just had, oh God, I remember the billions of questions that I had that I wanted to know. And sometimes it's very hard to find that person that'll take that extra time to answer those questions. And I really like it when I see the groups these days offering mentorship and like, man, social media. That to me, I love it. People talk about, oh, social media. I've learned more since, 1997, 98, I think, when I got my first computer. I've actually learned more about the world, more about our community, more about, you know, just being socially active since the internet. And we can now have friends that we've never seen before. Like you talked about messaging and people all over. That's just one of my passions. Being able to follow someone and literally be able to reach out to them and form a friendship and share information. I love my social media. I mean, I really do. What do you think maybe is something within our leather community that we could work towards to make it better?
I think we need more of the older folks to be more open, to realize that the days of the code bar where you could only get in if you were wearing certain dress, certain outfits, maybe needs to be a little bit more flexible. Not to the point where they're coming in flip-flops, because in that that doesn't help us boot blacks much.
Right, that's right.
But that's a little selfish
we're not going to change that rule.
Yeah, but to let the kids in to see what's going on and to be more accepting of the fact that one of the things I like is the fact that now there's an acceptance of the trans community, you know, the trans kids, and the full spectrum of being trans, that you don't necessarily have to be post-operative to, you know, and be able to pass in order to be trans, that you can be trans or non-binary if it works for you.
I think we're at an exciting time with that. I mean, I had friends when I was in school that they could never be themselves. You know, they couldn't. You had to follow along with what society expected you to do and act and wear and all those things. And for me, it's a blessing when I see even these 15-year-old kids that are so comfortable in their skin and the way that they dress and they can express themselves. I think we're really, for me, in an exciting time to be able to see those things. And what we were talking about was there seems to be so many titles now. I think it keeps people excited about the events and about leather, but it's become so much to the forefront that I think it might be taken away from some of the other things that we do really well in the community. What would you like to see within your community? What would you like to see change or get better?
I'd like to see more classes, more ways to be educated, for people to share what they know on a more personal level. Maybe like the YouTube videos, but it would be better, I think, if you could have an event that was mostly about classes rather than contest. They try to do classes with the contest, but I don't know how well that works.
I think they get caught up with it a lot. I mean, think about it. If you're a producer and an educator and all these things, you don't have time to be doing everything within that. So it comes to, but now I did have one producer tell me if it wasn't for the contest, we couldn't afford to put this on. The money that it generates, the contest itself, actually pays for the classes. So there's a catch-22 there.
Right.
But I totally agree with you. I would love to see more weekend intensives. Even on a small level, like a smaller group of people, a little bit more intimate. You know what I'm saying? Being able to spend a complete weekend, even if it's not a huge event. And that's one of the things I think I miss, because I remember when I first came out in the community, just getting together to drink tea with some people and exchanging that energy, that information, that hands-on, let me show you how to do this, and we've been in it now long enough. I miss those things. I miss those little things.
Yes.
So, and do you think that could be accomplished?
I think it could if people were interested and willing to do it.
Right.
It's just getting people to come out for something more than just, okay, I'm coming out in full cow. Why don't you just sit there in your jeans and a t-shirt and talk? We've actually discussed that many times, a situation of, what happened to the dinner parties when you invited 2 or 3 couples over and you casually got to know each other, or hey, I got this new whip, what do you think about, you know what I'm saying? Just those things. I learned a lot from those things. I learned a lot from sitting there in a sundress and flip-flops, talking to somebody about leather or how they grew up or even their spirituality and those things. I believe that we're missing that these days. And I would love to figure out how to get that back. I don't know if it's possible. Well, I don't know if you know about the Baltimore Playhouse, but they are available. They have the weekend stuff, but they're also available to be rented out by groups of people or even individuals. The only restriction is no alcohol, which, if you're drinking juice and soda, don't need that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you're at a place like that, you can understand that, you don't have to do that. But I didn't know that. I believe you've been.
I've been there twice,
Yeah, he has been there. I, believe it or not, have not been there yet. But we're just now getting to the point that we want to get out in the community and start meeting people. And I think, as we've discussed before, we're kind of getting to the point where it's time to not fly out to another state to socialize. It's time to start socializing within our community. So I'm excited about that, getting started here.
Well, Baltimore has a lot of stuff going on all the time, so it's just a matter of picking your poison.
Exactly. And what is your poison?
I do a lot of things. I do like I say, I do the boot blacking, so that gets me into a lot of doors. I'm also into the pup community. I'm known as the she-wolf, pup Horo. So that's another sort of subgroup. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. You know, I keep people on their toes because then, and I run a boot black group on Facebook. So
you're serving your community.
I'm trying.
I mean, it's pretty obvious you're serving your community. And from one woman to another, I just want you to know that I totally respect you. And I am so grateful when I just watch all the things that you're doing. It just makes me very happy that as limited as our socialization has been online, and I hope that changes, I've been watching, and I'm very honored to be able to sit and chat with you, and I surely hope that you'll do it again.
Sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you.